So here we are walking into my newly reorganized kitchen. I say newly reorganized, but really I just shifted a few things around because I wanted to change Baking Central. This area right here is what I used to refer to as Baking Central. My KitchenAid mixer was here, and all of my baking essentials and my spices were here because the cooktop is there, which is where I would use the spices, and the oven is here, and it made perfect sense to have Baking Central right next to the oven. Also, all of my cookie sheets and things are very convenient to the oven as well, right up above it. I also keep appliances that we don't use very frequently up in that cabinet as well. They're still easily accessible, but they're not out on the counter. So back to Baking Central. This entire area used to be where I kept all things baking, above and below. Now, this is my prep area. The spices are still in this cabinet, lower level, and then what's above there is like all cooking oils and refills for the spices and measuring cups and things like that. This worked out really, really well because these are all the things that I would normally use at the cooktop anyway, and so this whole area just became prep. Down below, this used to be more like baking utensils, like a hand mixer and, just miscellaneous baking utensils that I'll show you in a minute. And I actually switched this drawer with what used to be my prep area on the other side. And then down below used to be cake plates and KitchenAid attachments and extra baking supplies underneath here. Since I switched all of that and made this a prep area, cutting boards go down here because cutting boards need to be where the knives are. So this is all just, again, prep and then like casserole type dishes. So let's move over to where we moved Baking Central to. But on the way over there, I just want to show you guys this really quickly. So in a previous video, I showed you where my system is to keep the cookware closest to the cooktop where I would use it normally. So in these drawers, I keep my cookware. The bottom drawer has bigger pots and pans, but it just makes things really easy to just grab, put on the cooktop, and use as I need them. Let me tell you this. Tension rods are your friend, either in cabinets or in drawers. So little pots, little pans like this would normally just be really awkward to try to store. So if you use a tension rod, you can store things like that on their side instead of flat like I store these. And they'll be really easy to get to. You can see even I have trivets here, and they won't tip over or get in the way. I won't be, rustling through things trying to get them. This is a perfect example of how great using tension rods are. This little pot, this little pan would not have a home, but using a tension rod, I can keep it and its lid in this drawer upright, and it's easy to just grab and use. No problem. I love it. Okay, moving along back to Baking Central. Nothing changed here. And with the cookware, I made mention also that I keep lesser used cookware under here. These are huge pots and pans, or my cast iron. I do use my cast iron a lot, but those things don't get used very frequently. These items do get used frequently, but they're still very easily accessible. You guys, I know you're noticing this. I use a lot of hooks. They're very, very convenient for storing things like, odd size little pots and pans. Again, that would normally just get lost in the cabinet. So I use hooks for that, and for odd sized utensils that would take up a lot of space in a drawer, just not be easy to store. And because I don't have to get to these pots so much, this is still really convenient to have these items hanging, and I need those more than I need the pots. So hooks are your friend in the kitchen and in the bathroom and in the garage, and I love hooks. Back to Baking Central. So I moved the KitchenAid over to this side of the kitchen because instead of just having this small bit of counter space to work with, I now can use all of this counter space for baking. So KitchenAid mixer sits perfectly in this corner. And then this turned out to be a blessing in disguise. This cabinet used to be where all the mugs were for the coffee station. Now, all of the baking ingredients fit perfectly up in this cabinet. Even have some extra measuring cups and measuring spoons. I say extra because I keep measuring cups and measuring spoons inside the containers that I use them, and I try to keep the size that I use most often. So each one of these containers has a half cup scoop. I have a half teaspoon scoop in salt and a teaspoon scoop in the baking soda. That just makes it really easy when I get ready to bake. I don't have to go fumbling looking around for the right size measure. But so you can see that worked out really, really well. And up top is just like refill for the containers at the bottom. So I had to find a space for the baking utensils, and this is where the knives used to be. This used to be the prep area. So knives and cutting boards were down below. This worked out great as well because these were over in the other drawer that I showed you next to the oven, and there was a lot of wasted space in that drawer. So now that they're here, they fit perfectly. There's no wasted space, and it's easy to get to. Down below is where we move the cake plates and the mixing bowls and the extra KitchenAid attachments. And again, extra measuring cups and spatulas and things like that that I use for baking. And once again, things are hanging from hooks. It's just super convenient. The very last thing is that since I moved Baking Central to this corner, the coffee station had to move over here, which now is, I guess, like a beverage center. The SodaStream has always been here, and I just moved the coffee maker over here as well. I'm still on the fence about this area because I'm not real big on having a lot of things in one spot. I like things to be really clean and not a lot of stuff on the counters. But this is working out really well so far. So here's what changed up above here though. Had to find a place for the mugs, and this was a little bit of a challenge for me because since I had a dedicated cabinet for the mugs before, I was looking to have something dedicated for them again. Before, this shelf has stayed the same, but previously these colorful cups were up on this second shelf because the kids didn't use them much. Now they do use them, so it's okay to have them on this bottom shelf. I relocated the water bottles from this bottom shelf up to the third shelf and laid them on their sides. That way, even our youngest, who is getting taller now, can just grab what he needs, even if he has to use a stool, and they just kind of fall into place and he can do whatever he needs. So the coffee mugs, this ended up working out really well. Coffee mugs I put on this shelf. These are the ones we use most often. We use those sometimes as well. And then those up top, just random mugs that we don't really use that often. And I don't use the French press that often either. The great thing about this is that the actual coffee canister fits up in the cabinet now, whereas before it was on the counter. Now, the only problem with this was that in the previous configuration, I had water goblets where these mugs are. And I had to figure out where to put those water goblets. So what I realized is that only the adults use the water goblets. The kids never use them. So this cabinet has always been for glasses for adult beverages. And since we only use the water goblets, not the kids, I decided, okay, well, let's just move the water goblets over here with the rest of the adult glasses. And that worked out really, really well. Like, yeah, maybe they should have been here all along. So that's how the Baking Central ended up causing my kitchen reorg, and I think I really, really like it like this. I tried it out yesterday and baked a whole batch of cookies, and it worked out really well, even with having to go all the way to the other side to use the oven. I just basically did it like an assembly line. I filled my cookie sheets over in Baking Central, transferred them to the oven, took them out of the oven, put them on the stovetop, from the stovetop to the drying rack, and from the drying rack to the cake plate. Simple, and it didn't bother me at all. So that's my kitchen reorg. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, bye.